Have you ever stood in the stillness of early morning, just before the sun rises, when even the birds seem to hold their breath? There's a hush then, not of silence, but of anticipation, like the earth is listening. And in that moment, there is a strange clarity, as though the entire world is waiting for you to notice that life is always beginning again. Your mind is not a machine. It is not a battlefield. It is not a cage to be broken. It is a garden. And the question is not whether it will grow, but what it will grow. Every thought is a seed. Every breath is water. Every choice is sunlight or shadow. We live much of our lives scattering seeds without looking, seeds of worry, of resentment, of craving. We feed them with attention, with memory, with the stories we tell ourselves in the quiet corners of the night. And one day, we find ourselves walking through thorny weeds, unable to remember how they got so tall. But the garden has no blame in it. It simply reflects what was planted. So the work is not in guilt. The work is in returning in, kneeling down again, gently, hands in the soil of your own being, and beginning to sow differently. Start small, a single breath noticed, a single fear released, a single act of patience. Like rain after drought, the Buddha once said that whatever we frequently think and ponder upon becomes the inclination of our mind. That is how mountains are carved, not by force, but by repetition, a soft stream flowing endlessly. If your mind feels chaotic, it is not broken, it is just overgrown. No, gardener curses the wildness. They begin by observing. Where is there sunlight? Where is there space? Where does the soil feel alive? So, observe your thoughts, not with judgment, but with care, like watching clouds pass across the surface of a pond. You do not need to chase them. You only need to be still long enough to notice which ones return again and again, and what they are asking for. Some will ask for attention, some will ask for healing, some will simply ask to be let go. And when you let go, truly let go, it is not destruction. It is making room for something wiser, something quieter, something that's been waiting in the roots. Gratitude is a seed too, but it is not loud. It grows best in the soft soil of presence. Have you ever thanked the air for entering your lungs, or the ground for holding you, without complaint, every single day? Not because it is polite, but because it shifts you. Because when gratitude grows, scarcity shrinks. When you water what is already enough, you stop starving for what isn't. The truth is, much of our suffering is not pain, but resistance to pain, like trying to stop the wind with your hands. The wind does not mind, but your arms will ache. So practice loosening, like the trees do in autumn. They do not call it loss. They call it making space for next spring. What if your mind is waiting for its season of rest? What if peace is not earned, but allowed? Not something you run toward, but something you stop running from. There is an old Zen story of a monk who asked his master, "What is the path to enlightenment?" The master replied, "Chop wood, carry water." Years later, the monk asked again, "And after enlightenment?" The master smiled, "Chop wood, carry water." Enlightenment does not float above life. It enters it deeply, quietly, not in escape, but in intimacy with what is. The way you wash the dishes, the way you listen without preparing to speak, the way you pause to feel your breath before sending the next message. These are the gates, not grand, but open, not loud, but clear, because wisdom rarely arrives with noise. It enters like mist through trees. You don't see when it begins, only when you realize the whole forest is damp with it. And compassion, oh, compassion is not a reward for perfection. It is the ground itself. We learn to tend to others, not by learning their pain, but by meeting our own with kindness first. The one who cannot forgive themselves will never truly understand the ache of another, and the one who forgives themselves too easily, without growth, will never understand responsibility. but the one who sits with their own wounds, without flinching or dramatizing, just breathing, that one becomes a healer, because they have made room, and healing begins wherever there is room. So make room, in your schedule, in your words, in your breath, not to fill but to grow. The garden does not hurry, the garden does not compare. It simply receives light, accepts rain, and becomes what it was always meant to be when given the space. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not too much or too little. You are a field waiting for care. You are a grove, still learning the rhythm of the sun. You are the beginning again, and from here, everything can root differently. Do not aim to control your mind. Tend to it. Do not aim to conquer your thoughts. Compost them. Do not aim to chase peace. Cultivate it, because the garden you tend is not separate from who you are. It is who you are becoming. One breath, one thought, one soft intention at a time. There is something sacred in the slowness of growth. The way a tree takes decades to find its full height. The way a lotus rises from the mud, not with haste, but with knowing. Nothing in nature blooms all year. Why then should you expect yourself to? There is a season for resting, a season for breaking down, a season for being still, not because you are lost, but because the soil needs time to soften. You are not falling behind. You are deepening. Just because no one sees the roots doesn't mean they're not growing. Just because the flower has not yet opened doesn't mean it never will. You cannot rush awakening. The fruit that is forced before its time tastes bitter, but the one that ripens naturally, slowly, carries the sweetness of the sun. So tend to your season. Some days you will bloom, others you will mend. Both are sacred. Do not measure your worth by productivity. The moon does not apologize when it is not full. The ocean does not hide itself when it is calm. Even silence has a presence. Even waiting has a purpose. And what of the weeds? Yes, there were the weeds, invasive thoughts, old habits, familiar fears that return, even after we've let them go 100 times. But do not curse them. They are not failures. They are signs. Each weed shows you where your soil is rich enough to grow. Let them teach you. When anger rises, look beneath it. Is there fear? Is there pain? When jealousy coils, look closer. Is it pointing you towards something unlived in yourself? Each reaction is a signal not to shame, but to explore. The wise gardener does not rip out every weed in rage. They observe it, understand it, then choose what to keep and what to release, because transformation is not force. It is attention, to water only what aligns with peace, to give sunlight only to what fosters clarity, to choose moment by moment which seeds are worth feeding. And as you tend, you will begin to notice the subtler growth, patience, softness, the way you pause before speaking, not out of hesitation, but out of care, the way you begin to forgive, not because they earned it, but because you no longer want to carry the blade inside you, the way you sit with discomfort, not as punishment, but as presence, the way you look at a stranger and see, even if just for a second, that they too are trying to bloom in a world full of storms. This is wisdom, not intellect, not certainty, but intimacy with the way things are. A mind that has been tended becomes a refuge for yourself. For others, it is not a fortress, but a field, open, grounded, and alive. And from that field, compassion grows like wildflowers, unasked, but welcome. Not because you read about it, not because you were told to be kind, but because when you know your own suffering and you no longer fear it, you stop trying to build walls between yours and theirs. You begin to see the sameness, and in that sameness, the separation dissolves. The ego loosens. The story softens. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to win. You no longer need to defend every opinion like territory. You become less interested in control and more interested in connection, less obsessed with perfection and more in love with sincerity. And slowly, peace becomes Not something you reach, but something you return to, like the scent of soil after rain, familiar. Home, if the garden teaches anything, it is this: there is no wasted growth. Even the missteps, even the droughts, even the nights when you forgot who you were, they all shaped the roots. They all softened the ground for today. You are not behind. You are being refined. So breathe. Let the breath be your spade. Let awareness be your water. Let the presence of this moment be your sunlight. Because you are always cultivating, whether by default or by design. Your garden is becoming something, and now you have the choice to plant seeds of peace instead of worry, to sow trust instead of fear, to nourish stillness instead of noise. And it begins not tomorrow, not next week, not when life is easier, but now, here, in this breath, in this noticing, in the way your heart slows. When you remember, you do not need to be more. You need only to be real. The world does not need another perfect face. It needs a few more real hearts. It needs gardens that grow gentleness. It needs you not performing, not pretending, but present. So bow to your breath, bow to your mistakes, bow to the tiny, invisible growth happening beneath the surface of today, and trust, as every garden does, that what is tended with love will one day bloom. There is a myth we carry that healing is loud, that it comes with lightning, with fire, with a voice that shakes the heavens. But most healing is quiet. It happens in the small hours. It happens when no one claps, and nothing changes except the way you breathe. Healing looks like a single, mindful step taken on a day when you felt like collapsing. It looks like choosing not to spiral in old thoughts, not because they're gone, but because you no longer follow them. It looks like making tea, like tending to a plant, like listening without interrupting yourself. There is a beauty in repetition, in the way monks walk circles around the temple, in the way waves return to shore not once, but again and again. Discipline is not force. Discipline is devotion. Every morning you return to stillness is a form of love, not dramatic, but pure, like drawing a single line in the sand and saying, "This is the direction I choose," even when the winds blow, and they will, even when the rain falls longer than expected. Return. Return to what steadies you, to what aligns with truth, not trend, to what calms your nervous system, not what feeds your ego, to what feels rooted, not restless, because this world is fast, so fast. It mistakes motion for meaning. It praises urgency and forgets the value of pause. But in your garden, nothing is hurried. A leaf will fall when it is ready. A bud will open when the sun is right. And you will become who you are meant to be, not when others expect it, but when your soul says now. So practice listening, not to the noise outside, but to the hush inside, the space between two thoughts, the breath between two words. That is the gate. That is the way home. And yes, the path will sometimes be overgrown. You will forget what matters. You will get lost in comparison, in fear, in grasping. But even then, especially then, sit, not to fix, not to judge, but to remember. The lotus does not bloom because it fights the mud. It blooms because it grows through it. You are allowed to have shadows. You are allowed to outgrow old dreams. You are allowed to want something different now. Growth is not betrayal. It is honesty, and honesty is what makes the garden thrive. To be real with yourself, to admit what hurts, to name what you've been avoiding, not as shame, but as tending, the way you gently cut away dead leaves so that light can reach the living ones. This is the art of inner gardening, not perfection, but presence, not control, but care. And care requires attention, not only to what blooms, but to what breaks. There will be moments when a part of you wilts, when a relationship dies, when a hope no longer fits. Let it go, not because it meant nothing, but because it had its season. Do not cling to autumn when winter is calling, and do not fear. Winter, it is not the end. It is the deep breath before rebirth, the rest that roots need before the next spring. Stillness is not stagnation, it is preparation. It is how the earth gathers energy in the cold. It is how the mind regathers clarity in silence. So do not rush the quiet seasons. They are sacred. They are where wisdom germinates. Wisdom not from books, not from others, but from your own lived soil, from what you have knelt with, from what you have buried, and what you have dared to bloom. And here, in the hush of your garden, you begin to see what no storm can take from you, the root of peace, the center that holds, the knowing that does not need applause. There is a rhythm here, not the rhythm of the world, but the rhythm of nature, slow, soft, and sure. And when you align with it, you stop forcing your life into shapes it was never meant to hold. You stop chasing what was never yours. You stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's plot of land. You remember, this garden is yours, not to compare, not to monetize, but to live in. So plant what is true, even if it is quiet, even if it is not trending, and water it daily, not with shame, not with urgency, but with presence, and watch as what grows within you begins to change the way you see the world around you. Because when your inner landscape is calm, even chaos feels different. When your roots are deep, even storms pass through without tearing you apart. And when your heart is open, not from force, but from tending, you become not just a gardener of self, but of the world. Every word you speak becomes a seed, every glance, a ray of light, every silence, a soft rain. And in that way, you don't just walk through life, you bless it, you cultivate it, you live as part of it fully, gently, wholly. There comes a moment, not always loud, not always clear, when you realize the garden is no longer just inside you. It begins to spill over into the way you speak, the way you pause before reacting, the way you hold space for someone else's confusion without needing to fix it. You become a quiet presence, not because you are detached, but because you are rooted, not because you are indifferent, but because you've learned to care without clinging. And this is the true harvest, not applause, not perfection, but a way of being that nourishes everything it touches. People may not know why they feel calmer around you. They may not have words for it, but they'll feel the garden in the way your presence says, here, it is safe to be. This is the gift of a tended mind. It stops trying to prove. It starts to offer, like the plum tree that blooms without asking who is watching, like the lantern that glows even when no one is walking the path, like the breeze that moves through the rice fields, never asking for praise, only carrying the scent of the season forward. A mind that knows itself no longer fears stillness. It learns the power of non-doing, the strength in not reacting, the clarity in silence, because from silence, things become visible. From stillness, the next step becomes obvious. From presence, the right action grows not from pressure, but from alignment. And when you live this way, life stops being a chase. It becomes a dance. With time, with truth, with change. You no longer grip. You no longer resist. You receive what comes, what stays, what goes. And in receiving, you remember the seasons were never your enemy. They were your rhythm, your reminder that nothing needs to last forever to be meaningful. Like the cherry blossom, whose brief bloom is not a flaw, but the very reason we bow to it. It teaches us to love deeply, knowing it will pass, to give fully, knowing nothing is ours to keep, to live vividly, knowing every moment is a petal falling. This is wisdom, not a concept, not a command, but a way of walking, a way of seeing, and when it takes root, you realize that nothing you've lost was wasted, that even sorrow was compost, that even regret was a root trying to break through, that every part of your story, even the crooked branches, had their place in the landscape of becoming. And now you are ready to live not from fear, but from fullness, to speak not to impress, but to connect, to rest not because you're weak, but because you're wise, to say no, not from guilt, but from clarity, to say yes, not from pressure, but from joy, to walk away, not to escape, but to make space, to grow not taller, not louder, but deeper. And when the wind comes again, as it always will, you will not break, you will bend, you will remember your roots. And when the doubt returns, as it always does, you will not chase it away. You will offer it a seat in the shade, and it will pass like all weather does, because now you know, truly know, that peace is not a place you arrive at. It is a place you plant and tend and return to over and over in the breath, in the stillness, in the simple act of being awake, not just to the world, but to yourself. So go now, not with urgency, not with pressure, but with presence, with hands that have touched their own soil, with eyes that see clearly not just the world, but their place in it, and with a heart steady, open, and alive that knows you are the garden, you are the gardener, and you are the seed. May you bloom, may you root, may you return always to what is real, and may the path ahead be soft beneath your feet, not because it is easy, but because you walk it with care, the care of one who has remembered everything you need to grow is already within.